Welcome back, sleepy soul. Tonight, I am your storyteller, ready to drift you into a deep and peaceful sleep. Before we begin, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe for more scary stories. I'd love to hear where you're watching from and what time it is there, so please let me know in the comments. Also, if there's a particular story you'd like to hear next, feel free to suggest it. My name is Claire Martin. I'm 33 years old, a 7th grade English teacher in Durham, North Carolina. I spend my days correcting essays about symbolism and Shakespeare, and until a few months ago, I thought my life was steady, boring even. But boredom would have been a blessing compared to what came next. It all started with a smell. It wasn't the faint rot of forgotten food or the damp scent of old wood. No. This was something I'd never known before, a sickly sweetness, like caramel left too long on the stove, bubbling until it blackened and stuck. A scent that made my throat tighten, my stomach churn. It drifted through our bedroom late one night as Daniel, my husband, slept beside me. I nudged him awake. "Do you smell that?" He groaned, rolled over, muttered, "You're dreaming." But I wasn't. The odor clung to the sheets, sank into my hair. It didn't fade the way dreams do. And I knew, deep in the marrow of my bones, that something had changed in our house. The next day, on my way to work, I borrowed Daniel's car. Mine had flat. I found a receipt tucked in the glove compartment, folded neatly as if it had been placed there for me to find. The Lantern Room, a restaurant we'd never been to. Scribbled across the paper, written in a childish swoop of pink lipstick, was a single name, Hannah. I sat in the driver's seat, staring at the lipstick curve of her H, and my hands trembled so badly I dropped the paper. My throat burned as if that scorched sweet smell had settled inside me. When I asked Daniel about it later, he laughed it off. "Must have been the waiter's joke," he said, but his eyes darted away, and I saw guilt written across his face. That night, the house began to breathe. At first, it was subtle, the old pipes groaning, the kitchen light flickering like a candle about to die. But the noises didn't come randomly. They were deliberate, timed, as though something inside the walls was listening. And then came the shadows. I stood in the bathroom brushing my teeth when I saw her in the mirror. Behind Daniel, wet hair clinging to her cheeks, her clothes soaked and clinging like burned rags. Her eyes, black in sockets that still smoldered, faint wisps of smoke curling upward. I screamed. The toothbrush clattered to the floor. Daniel spun, confused, demanding what was wrong. But the mirror showed nothing now, only us. Only me, losing my mind. It escalated quickly after that. The shadows lengthened in every room. The pipes didn't just groan, they moaned, as if in pleasure or agony. The kitchen light pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. And then I saw her fully. I'd gone downstairs one evening, desperate for a glass of water, when I found Hannah in the kitchen. She was standing in front of the sink, hair dripping, water pooling at her feet. Her fingers were blackened, jagged nails curling like charred wood. When she turned to me, the air smelled of burned flesh, sweet and foul. I dropped the glass. It shattered on the floor. "Daniel," I whispered, but my husband was behind her now. Behind her, his expression blank, as if she had already hollowed him out. The night it all came to a head, the house turned against me. Doors slammed shut. Windows rattled like they were about to explode. Smoke poured from the walls, thick, rose-scented smoke that stung my eyes but smelled cloyingly sweet. Hannah lunged at me, her burned hands outstretched, jagged nails slicing at my arms. She was fast, impossibly fast, her movements jerky like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. And Daniel just stood there, watching, his eyes glazed, his mouth slightly open as though he belonged to her now. I screamed his name, but he didn't move. I forced myself through the smallest crack of the living room window, shoving until the frame splintered. Glass tore into my arms, blood smeared across the sill, but I pushed harder, until I fell onto the cold grass outside. Smoke billowed out after me, curling around my legs as if trying to drag me back in. I ran barefoot, heart hammering, until the house was nothing but a glowing shadow behind me. I've been staying with my sister, Megan, ever since. But the haunting followed. At night, lying on her sofa, I still hear the house sounds. The groaning pipes, the flicker of lights, the weighted silence pressing against my ears. And that smell. God, that smell. Rose-scented smoke, caramel sweet until it turns foul. I try to ignore it, to tell myself it's just trauma clinging to me. But yesterday, I drove past the old house. I told myself I just needed closure. The windows were dark, the curtains drawn, but then upstairs I saw them, Daniel and Hannah, standing side by side in the bedroom window. His face slack, hers burned and dripping, smoke curling from her eyes. They stood so close, their shoulders touched, like lovers. My breath caught in my throat. My hand shook so badly, I nearly veered off the road. I pressed the accelerator and didn't stop until the house disappeared from view. But it doesn't matter. The haunting has me now. Last night, as I drifted to sleep, I smelled the rose-scented smoke seeping from my pillow. I heard Daniel's voice, soft and tender, whispering my name from just beyond the wall. And when I opened my eyes, I swore I saw a shadow, long and thin, stretching across Megan's ceiling. The house has claimed him, and now I think it's coming for me. A quick announcement here. If you're still here and enjoying these stories but haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to do so. Drop a comment too. It really helps push the video out to more people. Your support means everything, and it truly makes my day. I used to think betrayal was something you could recover from, a wound that scabbed over with enough time. I've stitched up broken bodies as a nurse. I've watched skin knit itself together, bones set. But betrayal is different. It doesn't heal, it festers, and in my case, it turned into something worse. Something that wouldn't let me go. My name is Marissa. I live in Durham, North Carolina, not far from where my best friend Claire grew up. I thought my marriage was safe. Daniel, my husband, was stable, dependable, the kind of man who still left post-it notes on the fridge reminding me he loved me. We had a daughter, Emma, 7 years old, with a laugh that could fill any room. For a long time, I believed our life was whole. Then I found the receipt. It was a Monday night. Daniel had just come home from a business trip. He dumped his jeans in the hamper, kissed Emma on the head, and poured himself a drink. As I sorted the laundry later, my fingers brushed a slip of paper in his pocket. At first, I thought it was nothing, but the printed words froze me. Room 306, Harbor View Hotel. I stared at it, reading the numbers over and over. My chest tightened. I wanted to believe it was a mistake, but I couldn't. When I pressed the paper to my nose, there was a faint trace of perfume, sweet but sharp, almost metallic. It wasn't mine. I tried to hold myself together. I smiled for Emma, cooked dinner, brushed her hair for school. But every time Daniel kissed me, I smelled that perfume on his skin. That's when the house changed. At first, it was only drafts whispering through the hallways. They carried fragments of sound, not quite words, but close enough that I felt as if someone were murmuring just out of reach. The shadows thickened, stretched farther than the lamplight should have allowed. Then Emma started talking. "Daddy brings the woman upstairs," she said one night, her small hands twisting in her blanket. I froze. "What woman, baby?" Her eyes were wide and innocent, but her voice was solemn. "The one who doesn't have eyes." The air in the room turned so cold I could see her breath. I held her close, whispering that it was just a dream, but I knew she hadn't been dreaming. Soon, the house wouldn't let me go. One evening, I tried to step outside for air. The lock jammed under my hand, refusing to turn. I rattled the knob until Emma cried out, begging me to stop. When I tried the windows, they stayed stubbornly shut as though nailed from the outside. The house wanted me inside. I began noticing fresh indents in the cushions of the sofa, as if someone had just been sitting there. The faint smell of lavender drifted through the rooms, sweet and heavy, settling in my hair and on my skin. It wasn't mine. It was hers. And the shadows, they were no longer just shadows. They leaned toward me, stretched their arms, reaching. It all collapsed on a stormy night. Rain lashed the windows, thunder rolled over the roof. I woke to the sound of voices. I slipped out of bed, crept down the stairs, and froze at the entryway. Daniel was standing by the door, and with him was the woman. She wasn't fully solid. Her face shimmered and blurred like bad reception on a television screen. Her eyes were worse than empty. They were glassy pools reflecting nothing. Her body was twisted slightly, moving in jerks, but she smiled with lips that never quite matched the shape of her teeth. Daniel turned, and for a moment I thought he'd see me. But his eyes looked past me, as if I weren't even there. The woman shifted her gaze, and when her hollow eyes met mine, my stomach dropped. I felt as if I were falling inside them, drowning in silence. Her skin rippled, and suddenly I saw my own face reflected back, pale, hollow, lifeless. I screamed. Emma's voice cut through from upstairs, shrill with terror. I tore myself away from that stare, grabbed her in my arms, and ran. Behind me, the house shuddered, its walls glowing with a dim light as if alive. Daniel's voice, warped, layered, wrong, echoed through the storm. Come home. We stayed with Claire after that. She tried to reassure me, saying I'd imagined things, that the stress of betrayal had broken something inside me. But she knew. She'd smelled the same smoke once, felt the same weight. Emma stopped laughing. She stopped drawing animals and rainbows. All her sketches were frantic lines of our house. The front door was always open. In the doorway, she'd draw a figure, sometimes Daniel, sometimes me. The paper was often torn where she pressed her crayon too hard. One morning, she brought me a new drawing. This one made my blood run cold. It showed me, standing in the doorway, but my face wasn't mine. It was pale and angry with hollow eyes. Emma whispered, "She gets mad if we hide her." I asked who. The other mommy. Nights at Claire's weren't peaceful either. I would wake in the dark, standing barefoot by the door with my hand on the knob. I hadn't remembered getting up. The whisper would be in my ear then, Daniel's voice calling me back. Come home. Claire began locking me in her guest room at night, but I always woke with the key in my hand, though she swore she hid it. The haunting wasn't in the house anymore. It was inside me. One evening, as Emma and I tried to sleep, I smelled lavender thick as smoke. My chest ached, my throat burned. The lights flickered, then went out completely. I heard her in the dark, the woman. Her voice was like wind through broken glass. "Marissa," she whispered. "Marissa, come back. The hollow is waiting." Emma clutched my arm. "She's angry," she sobbed. "She wants you to come home." I held her, shaking, knowing it was true. The house wasn't finished with me. The worst came a week later. I dreamed, or thought I dreamed, that I stood in the doorway of our old house. Daniel was inside, his arms stretched toward me. Behind him, the woman's face flickered in and out, sometimes her, sometimes me. Then I woke in Claire's living room. The front door was wide open. Cold air rushed in, carrying that sharp lavender scent. My bare feet were bleeding from walking across glass I couldn't remember breaking. Emma was upstairs, crying in her sleep, whispering, "Don't go, Mommy. Don't go." I'm writing this now in Claire's apartment. Though even as I write, I hear Daniel's voice bleeding through the walls. He's whispering my name, promising safety, promising warmth if I just come back. The lavender smell never fades. It clings to Emma's clothes, my hair, my pillow. I know the truth now. The house doesn't want him. It doesn't want her. It wants me. It wants to fill me until there's nothing left but hollow space for it to live inside. And every night, I feel myself slipping closer. Soon, I fear I'll answer the voice. Soon, I'll go home. My name is Lauren. I'm 32 years old, and I work at a small dental clinic in Durham. People usually think my life is calm, predictable, even dull. But there's nothing dull about realizing your house is alive, that it breathes and remembers, that it hungers. It began with lipstick. Not mine. It was faint, nearly dried, like old blood pressed against fabric. I spotted it on the collar of my husband Mark's shirt as I folded the laundry. The color wasn't anything I'd ever worn, too dark, almost bruised. I tried to push it out of my mind. But the truth surfaced hours later when our neighbor, Elaine Turner, stopped me by the mailbox. Her voice was hesitant, almost guilty. "Lauren," she said, "I don't know if I should even tell you this, but I saw Mark out near the highway, by the bar, with a younger woman." She didn't need to say more. The lipstick was hers. Whoever she was. That's when the house shifted. At first it was the cellar, the door that never quite shut, the faint groaning pipes. But one night, as I stood in the kitchen, I heard Mark's voice drifting up from the dark below. "Lauren," it was his voice, clear, calling me from the cellar. I froze. My chest went tight. He was upstairs asleep. I'd just seen him. But the voice came again, soft, coaxing, too close to the stairs. "Lauren, come down." I clutched the counter until my nails broke against the laminate. The dog, Murphy, our shaggy golden retriever, let out a low growl. His hackles stood, his eyes locked on the cellar door. And then he bolted upstairs, tail tucked, whimpering. Murphy never went near that door again. The house wanted me. I felt it every day. The locks jammed when I tried to leave. The windows refused to open no matter how I shoved. The air grew thick and heavy inside the walls, pressing against my skin. Some nights, I swore I felt the walls breathing, expanding and contracting like a chest filled with air. And every time I closed my eyes, I heard Mark's voice again. "Lauren, come down." One night, I couldn't resist. The cellar door gaped open just slightly. A draft of damp air rose from below. It smelled of iron, wet earth, and copper sweetness, like blood seeping into soil. I held a flashlight, though my hands trembled so hard the beam jumped against the walls. I stepped down one creaking stair at a time, my breath ragged in my throat. Halfway down, I stopped. The voice was right behind me. "Lauren," so close, it should have been brushing my ear. Something did brush me, cold, slick, wet. A hand, long fingers trailing across my shoulder, clammy as if pulled from mud. I screamed, bolted up the stairs, the wood cracking beneath me as if trying to snap shut, to trap me. The door at the top shrank, narrower and narrower, but I slammed my shoulder through and tumbled onto the kitchen floor. The cellar groaned in disappointment, the door slamming shut with a sound like bones breaking. I couldn't stay. I fled to my sister, Jenna's apartment across town. She believed me, or at least pretended to. She let me sleep on her couch, but the house had followed. I heard it in the walls. Whispers layered on whispers, too many voices, all murmuring at once. Secrets I'd long buried, things I'd said, things I'd thought. It knew me, it remembered me, and the smell followed too, that iron and copper-sweet perfume that clung to my skin, that coated the back of my tongue. One night, Jenna found me standing in the kitchen, my hands pressed to the wall. I was listening. "Lauren," the voices hissed. "Come back." Jenna tried to shake me, but I couldn't stop. My ear was glued to the plaster, listening to their promises, their lies. The wall throbbed beneath my cheek like a beating heart. I didn't remember moving back into the house, but somehow I was there again. The final night came like a storm, though the skies outside were clear. The cellar door burst open with a violent crack. Whispers poured out, a tide of voices screaming my name. The air was heavy with perfume, so thick I gagged. I stumbled forward, powerless, my legs moving against my will. The house had me. At the top of the cellar stairs, the darkness below churned like a living thing. 1,000 voices layered together, calling, pleading, demanding. The scent of blood and sweetness was unbearable, coating every breath. A hand reached out from the dark, long, slick, wet. The same hand that had touched me before. It grabbed my wrist, yanking me downward. I screamed, fought, clawed at the doorframe. The wood splintered beneath my nails. Lauren, the voices said, in perfect unison. I pulled with everything in me. The hand tightened, dragging me into the dark, into the place where the whispers lived. Somehow I broke free. My skin burned where the fingers had clutched me, red welts swelling on my wrist. I slammed the door shut and ran, tearing through the house, stumbling into the night. I've been running ever since. Jenna lets me stay with her, but it doesn't matter. The whispers seep through the walls no matter where I go. Sometimes I hear them in the faucet water. Sometimes in the hum of the refrigerator. And the smell never leaves, the heavy, chemical-sweet perfume that rides the air wherever I am. The haunting isn't in the house anymore. It's in me. When I close my eyes, I feel it waiting in the cellar of my body, the place below where the light doesn't reach. I know one night the whispers will pull me back, and when they do, I don't think I'll escape again. My name is Evelyn. I've taught high school English for 11 years, and I used to think the worst thing that could happen in my life was failing a student or watching my marriage slowly fall apart. But I was wrong. So wrong. It wasn't the betrayal itself that destroyed me. It was what followed. The house knew. It breathed. It listened. It wanted me. It began with a perfume. One night, I woke to the sound of Lucas, my husband, slipping out of bed. He thought I was asleep. I watched his shadow pass under the door, the faint creak of the stairs. He returned an hour later, and when he slid beneath the sheets, I smelled it. Sweet, thick, floral. Not my perfume. Not mine at all. The scent coated his skin, clung to his hair, soaked into my pillow where his head touched. I rolled away, silent, my eyes burning in the dark. The next morning, as he buttoned his shirt, I noticed a faint smear of lipstick near his collar. Dark, almost wine-colored. I never wore that shade. That night, the house breathed. At first I thought it was a draft, some old vent moaning in the plaster. But it wasn't. I woke at 2 a.m. to the sound of a low, wet exhale coming from inside the wall by my bed. The plaster trembled beneath my fingers when I touched it, as if lungs were swelling behind the paint. The perfume thickened. It didn't fade the way normal scents do. It grew stronger, clinging to the walls, the bedding, even my skin, until I could taste it in the back of my throat. And then the words appeared. I stepped into the bathroom after a shower, steam fogging the mirror. I wiped my hand across the glass, and there it was. She's here too. My stomach dropped. I staggered backward, slipping on the tile. The words lingered, dripping down the glass like they'd been carved into the steam. The storm came 3 nights later. Rain hammered the roof. Wind rattled the windows. I woke again to find Lucas gone. I followed the faint sound of movement into the basement. The air was damp, heavy with that perfume. I crept down the stairs, my heart pounding. Lucas was standing at the far wall, staring, silent. At first, I thought he'd gone mad. His hands hung limply at his sides, his mouth slightly open. He wasn't looking at the wall. He was looking through it. And then I saw her. A silhouette projected against the basement wall, sharp and clear despite the storm-dark night. A woman's figure, slender, still waiting. As I watched, veins like black oil began splitting across the plaster. The wall cracked, splitting downward, and something began to peel itself free. A body. She emerged from a wall with a grotesque smile, her skin slick with dark streaks that pulsed like veins, her eyes hollow and hungry. I screamed. Lucas didn't move. He didn't even blink. I bolted back up the stairs, the house shuddering around me. The door slammed shut behind me, rattling in its frame as if something clawed at the other side. Invisible hands gripped my arms, dragging me backward. I felt nails dig into my skin, pulling me toward the basement. Lightning flashed through the window, filling the house with light. For a split second, the grip loosened, recoiling from the brightness. I tore free, burst through the front door into the storm, rain soaking my clothes, thunder rolling above. I didn't look back. I moved into a small apartment above a laundromat downtown. The constant hum of machines, the endless clatter of coins and zippers, gave me comfort. Noise kept me sane. Silence was unbearable. But the haunting followed. The breathing started again. Low, wet exhales pressed against the walls of my new bedroom. At first, I told myself it was the pipes. But then I smelled it, the perfume. Thick, suffocating, filling the apartment until I gagged. The words came back too. One morning, etched in condensation on my window. She's here too. My chest ached as if my heart had grown heavier. My skin burned where invisible fingers brushed me in the night. And then I saw her. It was late, the machines downstairs finally silent. I lay in bed, forcing myself to breathe evenly. That's when the wall across from me began to crack. Spiderweb lines split the plaster, dark veins spreading outward. Her shape pressed through, her half-formed body struggling against the wall. Her smile widened, grotesque and patient. The cracks widened until pieces of plaster rained onto the floor. She was no longer bound to the house. She didn't need it anymore. She had me. I still hear the breathing, even now. It fills every space I enter, classrooms, hallways, even the grocery store. I smell the perfume everywhere, soaking into my hair, my clothes. I know she's waiting, pressing closer each night. The walls are thin now, thinner than they've ever been. And when they break completely, she'll come through. Not for Lucas, not for anyone else, for me. My name is Naomi Fletcher. I'm 32 years old, a paralegal in Portland, Maine. I thought my life was built on order, briefs filed on time, schedules followed, facts arranged in neat stacks. I lived with my husband, Ethan Vance, in a two-story house that felt safe, dependable. I clung to that safety the way some people cling to prayer. But safety is an illusion. I know that now. It started with a hotel key card. I found it in Ethan's coat pocket as I gathered his clothes for the wash. A thin plastic card, the kind you swipe through a door, with a faint smudge of lipstick red against the edge. My hand went cold when I held it. The stain was unmistakable, lipstick glossy and fresh enough that it smeared onto my fingertip. I wanted to throw it away, to pretend I hadn't seen it, but curiosity ate at me. I slipped it into my purse. That night, while Ethan sat in the living room scrolling on his phone, I held the card up to the lamp. Room 412. A hotel near the waterfront. I didn't confront him. Not then. Instead, I waited. And that waiting, holding the knowledge in my throat like a stone, was when the house shifted. The silence was first. Every house has its own sounds. The hum of appliances, the creak of wood, the faint tick of cooling pipes. But ours fell silent. Too silent. The furnace no longer rattled. The fridge stopped humming. Even footsteps seemed muffled, as if the walls swallowed them. Then the silence deepened. It wasn't emptiness, it was pressure. I felt it against my eardrums like being underwater. The furnace returned, but it wasn't the same. The hum carried with it a vibration, metallic and broken, and beneath it I swore I heard something else. A woman sobbing. The bathroom mirror confirmed what I feared. One morning, steam fogged the glass after my shower. When I wiped it clean, words bloomed across the surface as if etched from inside the glass itself. He lies. I staggered backward, wrapping the towel tighter around me. My reflection was pale, my eyes wide, but the words remained until the glass cooled. The shadows grew heavier after that. They didn't just fall where the light didn't reach. They thickened into a dark mass, dense enough that I felt them breathing. Sometimes they swelled, pressing outward as though trying to step into the room. I tried to convince myself it was grief, suspicion, paranoia. But the smell arrived next, and I couldn't pretend anymore. It was a stormy night, the kind that rattled windows and soaked streets until they gleamed like oil. Ethan stumbled through the door near midnight, drunk. His eyes were glassy, his shirt untucked. He collapsed onto the bed, muttering another woman's name. Before I could even breathe, the bedroom door slammed shut. The lock clicked without my hand on it, and then something pressed against the wood from the other side. A growl, low, wet, guttural. The door frame rattled with each breath. I screamed. Ethan didn't stir. The shadows swelled, thick and wet, spilling from the corners of the room. The growl deepened. I yanked the door handle, but it burned against my palm, hot as iron. I backed against the wall, chest heaving, until the growl faded into silence. When the door finally opened, the hallway beyond was empty. I fled barefoot into the rain, not even sure where I was running. The street lights blurred through tears. My feet slapped against the asphalt, and that's when I heard it. Footsteps behind me. Heavy, dragging footsteps. They slapped wetly against the ground. Too close, too deliberate. I spun, but the street was empty. Only the echo of my own ragged breathing filled the air. Yet the sound followed, step for step. I screamed at the dark, "Leave me alone." No answer, just the dragging rhythm, closer, closer. I stayed with my brother, Lucas, after that. He didn't press for details. He just handed me a blanket, told me to rest. For a few nights, I almost believed I was safe. But the haunting doesn't care about walls or addresses. It only cares about me. The phone rang at 3:15 a.m. The caller ID showed Ethan's name. My hand shook as I answered. At first, silence, then his voice. But beneath it, layered in static, was a sobbing metallic whine. I threw the phone down, heart pounding. Lucas burst into the room, demanding to know what happened. But the phone rang again. Same number, same time, every night after. Even when I changed phones, even when I changed numbers. I tried returning to the house once. It was a mistake. The front door creaked open without my hand on the knob. The air inside was stale, sweet, and thick with shadows. My chest tightened as I walked through the hall. When I reached the linen closet, the door was open. Inside, the dark mass waited. It wasn't absence anymore. It was shape. A dense, breathing shadow that pulsed against the shelves, inhaling and exhaling. My stomach churned. I slammed the door shut, but the wood shuddered beneath my palm as if something inside pressed back. That night, the phone rang again. I answered. This time, it wasn't Ethan's voice. It was hers. "Come back," she whispered. Her voice was wet, metallic, weeping between syllables. I haven't gone back since. But the haunting doesn't need the house anymore. It lingers in me. The smell clings to my clothes, the sobbing echoes in my ears. I feel the growl vibrating beneath the floorboards of wherever I go. The woman is patient. She knows I'll break eventually. And when I do, she'll be waiting in the dark closet, in the heavy shadows, in the sobbing that rattles through the pipes, waiting to take me. My name is Julia Hart. I'm 32, an English teacher in Portland, Maine. I've spent my life buried in novels, convincing teenagers that words can change them. But words are lies. What changes you is silence, the kind that seeps into your bones, that creeps through your walls, that waits for you to fall asleep before it presses its mouth to your ear. I used to think betrayal would come as a confession, an argument, maybe a slammed door. I never thought it would open something far worse. It began with a text. I wasn't snooping. Adolf, my husband, left his phone on the counter. The screen lit up. The words glared at me like a wound. I miss you. No name attached, just an unknown number. His phone buzzed again, the same number, but this time the message disappeared before I could grab it. When he returned, his touch was different, hollow, as if his hands belonged to someone else. That night, I found a faint smear of lipstick on his collar. Not mine. It was pale, ghostly almost, a shimmer that caught the light and vanished just as quickly. I should have confronted him. Instead, I listened. The house groaned. Pipes rattled in the night. At first, I blamed old plumbing. But the guest room door, locked for years, always stuck, began to rattle. Not with drafts, not with wind. It rattled like someone breathing inside. I pressed my ear to the wood. The sound was unmistakable. Long inhales, slow exhales. Breathing. I staggered back, heart hammering. My throat tightened. I told myself it was stress, paranoia. But the smell arrived next. Salt and ash, faint but suffocating. I followed Adolf one night. He slipped out after midnight, leaving the door half open. I trailed him through rain-slick streets, every step heavy with dread. He stopped at a house on Ashbury Lane, a crumbling Victorian, shutters falling loose, its windows dark as hollow eyes. I waited in the shadows, my breath fogged in the cold air as I watched him disappear inside. And then I saw her, at the window, pale as porcelain. Her hair hung damp and heavy, dark as seaweed. She turned her head slowly, unnaturally, until her eyes met mine through the glass. I froze. My chest seized. She smiled, and I knew she'd been waiting for me. When I returned home, the guest room door stood wide open. I hadn't unlocked it. The smell of ash filled the hallway. Inside, the floor was covered in piles of gray dust. Ash heaped like someone had burned bodies inside. I staggered backward, and Adolf was there. His face inches from mine. His eyes were wide, unblinking. He whispered in a language I didn't know. The syllables slithered like snakes, curling around my ears. His lips stretched into a smile, too wide, too sharp. I shoved past him, running down the hall, the sound of laughter following me. Not his laughter. Hers. I fled into the rain. The street lights blurred. My shoes slipped against wet pavement. Behind me, something scraped against my arm. It burned, not from outside, but inside my skin, as if the wall itself had reached through me and left a mark beneath the surface. When I looked, 3 scratches ran down my arm. They never healed. I didn't return home. I couldn't. I moved between motels, checking in under false names, dragging my suitcase like a dead limb. But the haunting didn't stay behind. It followed. Every mirror became a threat. One night, I stepped from the shower, steam curling in the air. On the fog glass above the sink, a single word appeared. Mine. I wiped it away, my hands trembling. But when I looked again, my reflection smiled without me. I screamed, throwing the mirror to the floor, shards scattering like teeth. But the word remained in every piece, mine. She sat on my bed sometimes. I'd wake in the night, the sheets damp, the air heavy with salt and ash. A depression lingered on the mattress beside me, shaped like a body, cold to the touch. Once I felt her hand brush my face, slick and freezing. I opened my eyes to see her leaning over me, dripping hair brushing my cheek, her smile stretching wider, wider. I couldn't scream. My voice was gone, swallowed by her presence. The scratches on my arm festered. No doctor could explain them. Antibiotics did nothing. The wounds didn't scab. They pulsed, red and raw, as if something beneath my skin clawed outward. Sometimes, at night, I could feel it moving. Not blood, not bone. Her, crawling under my flesh. I'd scratch until I bled, but the marks never faded. Adolf was gone. I don't know where. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses of him in reflections, in shop windows, in rain puddles. Always smiling, always whispering in that same language. Once, I woke in a motel room to find him standing at the foot of my bed. His smile wide, his eyes empty. Beside him, she crouched, her head cocked at a broken angle, her hand resting possessively on his shoulder. And then they were gone. The mirror on the dresser was cracked, though I hadn't touched it. The last time I saw her, it was through broken glass. A mirror in one of the motels shattered in the night, the pieces scattered across the floor. I bent to gather them, and in the largest shard I saw them both. Adolf and her, smiling, waiting. The glass cut my fingers as I dropped it, but I barely felt the pain. My blood smeared across the shard, and their smiles widened, feeding on it. That's when I understood. The betrayal wasn't the beginning. It was the door, and she was hunting me. I don't sleep much anymore. I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I feel her sitting on the bed, whispering in that language, scratching at my skin from the inside. The ash smell never fades. It clings to my lungs. I cough it up sometimes, gray flecks on my pillow. I move constantly, different motels, different towns, but she follows. She doesn't need the house anymore. She doesn't need Adolf. She has me. And sooner or later, when the scratches finally break open, she'll crawl all the way through. My name is Rachel Mercer. I'm 36 years old, a marketing coordinator in Raleigh, North Carolina. My life was supposed to be predictable: deadlines, meetings, dinner with my husband Owen, and weekend visits to my sister Meredith. Stability was all I wanted. Stability was all I thought I had. But betrayal has a way of shattering what you think you know. And sometimes, the pieces don't just cut you. Sometimes they come alive. I found a first piece by accident. I was reaching for the visor in Owen's car when a folded receipt slipped out and landed in my lap. A bar tab, dated last Friday, tucked beneath the visor as if he'd wanted to keep it hidden. There was lipstick smeared across the corner. Deep red, the color of blood and secrets. My throat went dry. I didn't confront him. Not immediately. Instead, I held the slip of paper tight in my hand like evidence, like proof that the unease gnawing at me wasn't madness. But the house knew before I did. The bedroom walls began to pulse. It happened late one night when Owen lay beside me, breathing steadily in his sleep. At first I thought it was headlights outside, shadows shifting across the walls. But no. The plaster itself was swelling and contracting, throbbing like a living heart. I pressed my hand against it. It was warm. The next night, as I stood in the kitchen pouring water, I heard it, sharp, playful laughter echoing just behind me. A woman's laugh. I spun, heart pounding, but the room was empty. Above me, a water stain spread across the ceiling, darkening into the unmistakable shape of a mouth, wide and gaping. I screamed. Owen stumbled into the kitchen, demanding to know what was wrong. But when I pointed, the stain had shrunk to nothing. Our neighbor, Mr. Chandler, confirmed what I already feared. I was carrying groceries from my car when he stopped me at the curb. He looked uneasy, his voice low. "Rachel, I don't want to stir trouble, but I've seen shadows in your windows at night. Not just Owen, more than one woman." My stomach lurched. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The bed dipped beside me, though Owen was already asleep at my side. I felt the warmth of a body pressing against me, breath tickling my neck. When I turned, there was no one there. I tried to ignore it, to carry on, but the house wouldn't let me. The walls pulsed harder each night. The laughter followed me into every room. The ceiling stain widened again, a dark grin splitting open above our bed. And then the whispers began. My name hissed softly through the vents. Rachel. I confronted Owen one evening, clutching the lipstick-stained receipt in my hand. My voice shook as I demanded answers. But before he could speak, the house intervened. The ceiling above us cracked with a sound like snapping bones. Plaster rained down. The lights flickered and died. A woman's voice hissed my name from the vent, cold and wet. Rachel. I bolted for the door. Behind me, I heard Owen laugh, a sound I'd never heard before, layered with hers. I ran to Meredith's. She wrapped me in a blanket, tried to soothe me with tea, told me I was safe. But the haunting followed. The first night in her guest room, I woke to a damp drop landing on my forehead. I glanced up and saw it. A water stain spreading across the ceiling, dark and wide, forming again into the shape of a mouth. The second night, I woke to silence, but inside me, under my sternum, I felt something. A pulse. Not mine. A second heartbeat, small and solid, colliding with my own. I screamed, clutching at my chest, but Meredith only shook her head, horrified. She couldn't hear it. She couldn't feel it. I avoided sleep after that, but exhaustion always wins. When I dreamed, I was back in the house. The walls throbbed like veins. The laughter echoed, sharper, closer. The ceiling stain stretched wide until it swallowed the room whole. And Owen was there, standing in the center of it all. His eyes were hollow, his face slack, his mouth open as if the house itself spoke through him. "Come home, Rachel," he said, his voice warped and layered. When I woke, the second heartbeat was stronger, pounding inside me. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to go back. Meredith begged me not to, but the pull was too strong. The house was inside me now, and resisting it only made the pressure worse. I drove through the night, the receipt still folded in my pocket, my chest tight with each beat that wasn't mine. When I opened the front door, the air inside rushed at me, thick, hot, damp. The smell of perfume, cloying and rotten. The walls groaned in recognition. Owen was in the living room, or what was left of him. His skin was pale, stretched thin. His eyes were blank, his mouth hanging open. The house roared around us, the walls pulsing, the ceiling cracking, the laughter spiraling into screams. I stumbled backward, clutching my chest. The second heartbeat slammed against my ribs, frantic, alive. And then I understood. The haunting wasn't outside anymore. It wasn't in the house, or Owen, or the other women. It was in me. I can still feel it now, beating under my sternum. A solid knot of something that doesn't belong, colliding with my own heart. Every moment I stay silent, it grows stronger. Every moment I resist, the pressure builds. I know the truth. The house is waiting. And one day, when I go quiet enough, the second heart will climb all the way inside. My name is Lena Rowe. I'm 30 years old, a freelance graphic designer living in Boston. My work has always been simple. Screens, deadlines, clients I never meet face to face. My apartment used to feel like safety, like a space I controlled. But control was the first thing I lost. It started with Adrian, my husband. He didn't come home one night. His phone buzzed on the counter, the screen lighting with a name I didn't recognize. A woman's name. My stomach turned as I watched message after message fill the screen. When he finally stumbled through the door at dawn, he smelled faintly of perfume. Light, floral, sweet. Not mine. Never mine. He saw me staring, and said nothing, just brushed past me like I wasn't even there. The haunting began the same day. I was working at my desk when I heard it. A voice, soft, melodic, almost like a song. "Lena." I froze, my hand still on the keyboard. The voice came again, drifting from inside the walls. "Lena." I pressed my ear to the plaster, and the sound grew clearer. A woman's voice, warm but hollow, whispering my name again and again. That night, the kitchen cabinets crashed open without warning. Silverware clattered across the floor. The walls pulsed with heat, trembling as if blood ran inside them. When I turned to Adrian, he was standing by the hallway, his face shadowed, whispering softly to the wall. "I'll come back," he said. My heart stopped. I tried to leave. The locks jammed when I twisted them. My fingers slipped against the metal, but the bolt refused to budge. The windows wouldn't open either. No matter how hard I shoved, they groaned and pushed back, as though something on the other side held them shut. The apartment didn't want me to leave. Or maybe it didn't want me to escape her. The bathroom was the worst. One evening, I stepped inside to find water bleeding from the tiles, trickling down the walls. The drain gurgled like it was choking. I wiped at the mirror, and the glass fogged instantly, though I hadn't showered. Her face appeared there, eyes hollow, smile stretched too wide, skin pale and thin as paper. Her hand pressed against the inside of the glass, the surface rippling like water. Then her fingers began to push through. Adrian stood behind me, whispering her name under his breath. I screamed and stumbled backward as the mirror shuddered, the edges cracking like ice. The hallways changed after that. They lengthened, stretched into impossible corridors. Every door was marked with the same number, 217. I ran down one hall, gasping, but no matter how many doors I passed, the numbers never changed. Adrian followed me, his footsteps slow, steady. "She's waiting," he said. "You can't fight her. You can't fight me." The walls pulsed around us, beating in rhythm with my heart. I turned a corner, and the hall opened into our bedroom. But it wasn't ours anymore. The walls glowed faintly, breathing. The air smelled of flowers rotting in a vase. And she was there. Her body was stretched thin, her hair slick with water, her smile so wide it tore her face. Adrian walked toward her, his arms open, and she reached for me. I fled that night, desperate, dragging my suitcase into the street. My friend Maya let me stay with her, though I couldn't explain what I'd seen. She believed enough, or at least she tried to. But the haunting followed. The whisper found me in her apartment too. Low, melodic, curling through the walls. "Lena." Maya shivered when she heard it. She begged me to move again, but the locks jammed in her apartment too. The haunting didn't care where I hid. One night, Maya grabbed my hand. "We're leaving," she said. We ran for the door together, but when we tried the knob, it wouldn't turn, though it burned hot beneath my palm. The mirror above the sofa cracked, splitting into jagged shards. Her face appeared in every fragment, grinning, her hollow eyes fixed on me. Adrienne's voice filled the room, deep and layered. "She was the one I betrayed for you, Lena. Now she wants you." Maya screamed as the mirror yawned open, the shards melting into liquid glass. Two pale hands reached through, fingers dripping with water and ash. I pulled Maya back, but she slipped from my grip. She vanished into the mirror, her scream cut off instantly. The surface solidified again, leaving only my reflection. But my face was different, hollow eyes, stretched smile. I collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Adrian appeared that night, not in flesh, but in shadow. He stood at the foot of the bed, whispering her name, whispering mine. His eyes glowed faintly, like coals burning low. "She's yours now," he said, "and you're hers." I screamed at him to leave, to let me go, but the walls only pulsed harder, laughing with her voice. "I don't know what's real anymore. I see Maya sometimes in reflections, her smile wide and broken. She stands beside Adrian, both of them staring at me with hollow eyes. The apartment changes shape when I'm not looking. Doors multiply, hallways stretch. I walk in circles until I collapse, only to wake in my own bed again. The mirror never leaves me alone. Every time I look, her hands press harder against the glass, her face stretching closer. My reflection lags behind, smiling when I'm not. I know she's coming. The locks don't hold anymore. The walls are soft, pulsing, breathing against my skin. Last night, I woke to find Adrian sitting beside me. His hand rested on my arm, cold and damp. Maya stood behind him, her eyes hollow, her smile cracked. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The mirror across the room rippled like water, widening, waiting. Her voice filled the air, melodic and low. Lena, and then the glass split open. Her hands reached through, dripping, clawing. Adrienne's grip tightened, holding me down. Maya smiled, her hollow gaze fixed on me. I screamed until my throat bled. I don't know if I escaped. I'm writing this now, but even as I do, the letters blur. The walls pulse. The perfume fills my lungs. The mirror ripples in the corner of my eye, her face pressing closer, closer. And Adrian whispers behind me, his breath cold on my neck. She's here. She's always been here. I don't think I'll be able to resist much longer. And when she takes me, I know the mirror won't close. It'll stay open, waiting for someone else. My name is Lena Rowe. I'm 30 years old, a freelance graphic designer living in Boston. My work has always been simple. Screens, deadlines, clients I never meet face to face. My apartment used to feel like safety, like a space I controlled. But control was the first thing I lost. It started with Adrian, my husband. He didn't come home one night. His phone buzzed on the counter, the screen lighting with a name I didn't recognize. A woman's name. My stomach turned as I watched message after message fill the screen. When he finally stumbled through the door at dawn, he smelled faintly of perfume. Light, floral, sweet. Not mine. Never mine. He saw me staring and said nothing. Just brushed past me like I wasn't even there. The haunting began the same day. I was working at my desk when I heard it. A voice. Soft, melodic, almost like a song. Lena. I froze, my hand still on the keyboard. The voice came again, drifting from inside the walls. Lena. I pressed my ear to the plaster, and the sound grew clearer. A woman's voice, warm but hollow, whispering my name again and again. That night, the kitchen cabinets crashed open without warning. Silverware clattered across the floor. The walls pulsed with heat, trembling as if blood ran inside them. When I turned to Adrian, he was standing by the hallway, his face shadowed, whispering softly to the wall. "I'll come back," he said. My heart stopped. I tried to leave. The locks jammed when I twisted them. My fingers slipped against the metal, but the bolt refused to budge. The windows wouldn't open either. No matter how hard I shoved, they groaned and pushed back, as though something on the other side held them shut. The apartment didn't want me to leave. Or maybe it didn't want me to escape her. The bathroom was the worst. One evening, I stepped inside to find water bleeding from the tiles, trickling down the walls. The drain gurgled like it was choking. I wiped at the mirror, and the glass fogged instantly, though I hadn't showered. Her face appeared there. Eyes hollow, smile stretched too wide, skin pale and thin as paper. Her hand pressed against the inside of the glass, the surface rippling like water. Then her fingers began to push through. Adrian stood behind me, whispering her name under his breath. I screamed and stumbled backward as the mirror shuddered, the edges cracking like ice. The hallways changed after that. They lengthened, stretched into impossible corridors. Every door was marked with the same number, 217. I ran down one hall, gasping, but no matter how many doors I passed, the numbers never changed. Adrian followed me, his footsteps slow, steady. "She's waiting," he said. "You can't fight her. You can't fight me." The walls pulsed around us, beating in rhythm with my heart. I turned a corner, and the hall opened into our bedroom. But it wasn't ours anymore. The walls glowed faintly, breathing. The air smelled of flowers rotting in a vase. And she was there. Her body was stretched thin, her hair slick with water, her smile so wide it tore her face. Adrian walked toward her, his arms open, and she reached for me. I fled that night, desperate, dragging my suitcase into the street. My friend Maya let me stay with her, though I couldn't explain what I'd seen. She believed enough, or at least she tried to. But the haunting followed. The whisper found me in her apartment too. Low, melodic, curling through the walls. "Lena," Maya shivered when she heard it. She begged me to move again, but the lock jammed in her apartment too. The haunting didn't care where I hid. One night, Maya grabbed my hand. "We're leaving," she said. We ran for the door together, but when we tried the knob, it wouldn't turn, though it burned hot beneath my palm. The mirror above the sofa cracked, splitting into jagged shards. Her face appeared in every fragment, grinning, her hollow eyes fixed on me. Adrienne's voice filled the room, deep and layered. "She was the one I betrayed for you, Lena. Now she wants you." Maya screamed as the mirror yawned open, the shards melting into liquid glass. Two pale hands reached through, fingers dripping with water and ash. I pulled Maya back, but she slipped from my grip. She vanished into the mirror, her scream cut off instantly. The surface solidified again, leaving only my reflection. But my face was different, hollow eyes, stretched smile. I collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Adrian appeared that night, not in flesh, but in shadow. He stood at the foot of the bed, whispering her name, whispering mine. His eyes glowed faintly, like coals burning low. "She's yours now," he said, "and you're hers." I screamed at him to leave, to let me go, but the walls only pulsed harder, laughing with her voice. I don't know what's real anymore. I see Maya sometimes in reflections, her smile wide and broken. She stands beside Adrian, both of them staring at me with hollow eyes. The apartment changes shape when I'm not looking. Doors multiply, hallways stretch. I walk in circles until I collapse, only to wake in my own bed again. The mirror never leaves me alone. Every time I look, her hands press harder against the glass, her face stretching closer. My reflection lags behind, smiling when I'm not. I know she's coming. The locks don't hold anymore. The walls are soft, pulsing, breathing against my skin. Last night, I woke to find Adrian sitting beside me. His hand rested on my arm, cold and damp. Maya stood behind him, her eyes hollow, her smile cracked. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The mirror across the room rippled like water, widening, waiting. Her voice filled the air, melodic and low. "Lena," and then the glass split open. Her hands reached through, dripping, clawing. Adrienne's grip tightened, holding me down. Maya smiled, her hollow gaze fixed on me. I screamed until my throat bled. I don't know if I escaped. I'm writing this now, but even as I do, the letters blur. The walls pulse. The perfume fills my lungs. The mirror ripples in the corner of my eye, her face pressing closer, closer. And Adrian whispers behind me, his breath cold on my neck. "She's here. She's always been here. I don't think I'll be able to resist much longer. And when she takes me, I know the mirror won't close. It'll stay open, waiting for someone else." My name is Ingrid Dahl. I am 45 years old, and I teach art history at a small college in upstate New York. For 20 years, I've studied brushstrokes, pigments, chisels, and marble dust. I've lectured about permanence, about how art transcends its maker, how it survives beyond flesh and memory. But now, I'm beginning to understand that not all art survives. Some of it lives. And living things don't just endure. They change. They hunt. The first time I saw her, the statue, I felt my stomach lurch as though I'd walked into a funeral. It was a Thursday evening. I remember the sky, pale gray, sharp wind, the kind of twilight that makes every branch look skeletal. I parked in the driveway, balancing papers I still needed to grade, when I noticed the garage light spilling under the door. Arthur, my husband, usually worked in there late at night, but never with that intensity. The light was stark, unblinking, humming. I walked inside. Arthur was hunched at his workbench. His hands moved with feverish precision, his shoulders taut, his breath ragged. And before him stood the figure, a woman, full height, carved from white marble. Even unfinished, she looked alive. Her cheekbones sharp, her lips soft, her hair cascading in delicate folds. But what rooted me to the floor wasn't the beauty. It was her expression. She wasn't smiling like a muse. She was weeping. Her lips trembled downward. Her uncarved eyes looked hollow, sorrowful, and yet fixed on me. Arthur spun when he heard me. His eyes, bloodshot, widened as if I'd trespassed. "What are you doing here?" he snapped, too sharp, too unlike him. I stammered. I was just... He yanked a sheet from the side and threw it over her. Marble or not. I thought I saw her shoulders twitch beneath the fabric, as though she'd drawn breath. "It's a commission," he muttered. "Nothing for you to worry about." But his hand stayed on her shoulder even as he tried to wave me off. He stroked the marble like it was flesh. The next morning, I noticed it. Arthur's shirt, hanging on a laundry chair, was streaked with faint golden dust. At first I thought it was pollen, but when I touched it, the shimmer clung to my skin, grainy and metallic. That evening, I checked the bin. More shirts, more dust. Curiosity turned my stomach into ice. On his desk in the study, I found the receipts. Antique modeling clay, gold-flecked, purchased in bulk, ordered not under his name, but a pseudonym. A cross for Astrid. Astrid. I whispered the name aloud, and it echoed through the empty house. Days passed. The statue should have been cold, still, unchanging. But she wasn't. First came the cracks. Faint lines etched themselves across her cheeks. Then a single tear track appeared, though Arthur swore he hadn't touched the stone. The next morning, powder covered the floor around her, white like marble dust. But when I bent down, I realized it wasn't just marble. The powder shimmered faintly with gold. She was weeping. Arthur dismissed it. "You're imagining things." But at night, I caught him sitting with her, whispering into the hollow curve of her ear. The foundation of our home was clay soil, and I'd never thought about it much. But the house began to groan. Deep, low sounds vibrated through the floorboards. Not the creaks of settling wood. No, this was wet, thick like earth shifting far beneath us. And then, at night, I heard the sobbing. I followed at once, barefoot in the dark, pressing my ear to the cold concrete of the basement floor. It was clearer there. A woman's sobs, muffled, buried beneath earth and stone. I stumbled upstairs, shaking. Arthur only smiled faintly when I told him. "You're hearing inspiration." The statue changed faster now. Her sorrowful expression twisted into fury. Her lips pulled back, her marble face cracking further. And beneath those cracks, veins of something darker appeared. Wet slick, threaded with gold. When I touched her, the marble was warm. Arthur kissed my hand one night, absent-mindedly. His lips tasted faintly metallic, like he'd been chewing coins. "She's perfect," he whispered later in the dark. "She's her." I turned, trembling. "Who?" He didn't answer, but I knew. "Astrid." The night everything broke, I woke to a sound. Scraping. stone dragging across wood. I froze. My chest hammered. Slowly, I turned my head toward the sound and saw her. The statue stood beside my bed. Not marble anymore. Her face wept black dust, streaks trailing down her cheeks. Cracks split her body wide, chunks of marble sloughing away to reveal clay beneath. Her arms gleamed with wet gold, veins pulsing as if blood pumped through them. Arthur stood in the doorway, sobbing. "She's ruined," he moaned. "I had her. She was perfect, and now she's ruined." But his eyes shone with something I didn't understand. Not horror, devotion. The statue raised her hand. Marble skin split and fell in shards, clattering to the floor. From underneath, fingers emerged, formed of clay, slick, glistening, veined with gold. She reached for me. The smell of wet earth filled the room. The sobs from the basement rose louder, shaking the floor. I screamed, leaping from the bed. My bare feet struck shards of marble, slicing open my soles. The house groaned. The walls bulged inward, veins of gold streaking through plaster. Arthur didn't move. He reached toward her, whispering, "Astrid, my Astrid." I bolted down the hallway, the floor trembling, sobs rising like a chorus. I fled the house. The storm outside soaked me instantly. Rain streaked my hair, plastered my clothes. Behind me, the garage windows glowed faintly gold, as though something inside burned alive. I didn't look back. I thought distance would protect me. I moved into my family's old farmhouse, miles from town. For a week, it was quiet. No groans, no sobs, no dust. But then it began again. First came the dust. White marble flecks on my pillow in the morning. Then gold streaks in the mortar between the bricks. The sobbing returned at night, faint at first, then louder. And one morning, I woke to find my hands stained with gold dust. It clung to my skin. It pulsed faintly. The mirror betrayed me next. Tiny cracks appeared around my eyes. I touched them, panicked, but they weren't wrinkles. They were fissures. Beneath my skin, white gleamed through. Marble. The sculpted lie wasn't just following me. It was shaping me. That night, I dreamed of her. She stood at the foot of my bed, dripping clay, her golden veins glowing. She whispered, "You'll be perfect." Arthur is gone. His phone disconnected. His studio abandoned. But sometimes I glimpse him. In reflections, in dreams. Standing beside her, his hands buried in wet clay, his lips pressed to her cracked marble cheek. His eyes shine with gold. He isn't consumed. He belongs to her. The farmhouse walls bulge now. Veins of gold creep outward. The sobbing shakes the floors. Each night, I peel dust from my pillow. Each morning, the cracks spread further across my skin. When I smile, I feel fissures pull at my lips. Dust trickles onto my tongue. She wants me, not as a victim, as her. I sit at my desk, writing this. My fingers leave streaks of gold across the page. My reflection in the window doesn't match me anymore. Her smile is wider, sharper, perfect. I can feel the clay beneath my skin, pressing outward, reshaping me. The sculpted lie has no need for Arthur anymore. She has me. And soon, when the cracks burst open, I won't be Ingrid Dahl. I'll be Astrid, the perfect work of art.